Hey there guys, and welcome back. On this week's show, we're assembling the Nova Voyager 18-inch DVR drill press. Well, I need another piece of equipment in this shop like I need a hole in my head. But when I got the Rycon drill press, and I'm still happy with it, don't get me wrong, somebody mentioned, why didn't you look into the Nova? And I've been looking at it on and off over the amount of time that's passed. And, I finally got bit with the bug and I pulled the trigger on it and I just couldn't help myself. So I'm going to have to rearrange a few things, but we're going to get the drill press put in here and assembled. And that's what we're going to do on today's show. I'm not going to get into the unboxing and all of that foolishness. We're just going to do the assembly. And then if we have time, maybe some initial tests. So let's get into the assembly of the Nova Voyager drill press. Well, the crate of this drill press is an absolute beast, and the thing weighs about 325 pounds. Now, I'm not going to get into the whole ordeal of how I got it into the shop, but let's just say it also included the winch of my Jeep. So after browsing the manual to see how the whole thing assembles, I started off with the base. Like most or all cast iron tools, it comes coated in grease for anti-corrosion. So I clean it up first with some Varsol. Now guys, the process I'm about to show you is going to hold true for all the cast iron parts, so I don't need to repeat the whole process throughout the video. So once we get it cleaned up with the Varsol, I then use some Autosol metal polish. And it takes a bit of elbow grease, but I get in there and work it into the metal, making sure to get all the edges and as well all of the milling grooves. After that, I buff it all off, getting it as shiny and as clean as I can. And then when that's all done, just for a little bit of good measure, I turn around and I hit the thing with a little bit of paste wax. Now, the paste wax is not a necessary step, and in most parts or in most scenarios, I find that the Autosol gives a good enough coating that the paste wax is not really necessary, but it never hurts to add a little extra coat. So once we're done with that, we're going to get the upright, we're going to put it in place, and we need to bolt it down. Now guys, some of you will hate this step, others will love it, and that is anti-seize. If you're going to be putting bolts in cast iron, there's a cast iron base and a stainless bolt. Two dissimilar metals do nothing more than cause corrosion, so a bit of anti-seize is really going to help you should you ever need to take this thing apart or make adjustments. Trust me, as much as you hate anti-seize, the future you will thank you when it comes time to take this thing apart. Well, with the base secure, we now need to get the table in place as well as the rack, which is going to lower and raise the table. So you want to slide the rack into the table bracket, and from there you can slide the entire assembly down over top of the main shaft, making sure to lock it into the lower ring, and then take your top collar and slide that down over the entire assembly, making sure that the groove end is facing down on the ring so that it holds your rack in place against the main column. Once you get that done, you can tighten it all down. Well, it's now time to install the head, and if you want to do yourself a huge favor, put some grease around the top of the main upright shaft. It'll go a long way to helping the head slide over because this head is heavy. If you can get some help to put it up there, do it. If not, you're going to have a bit of a struggle. So you want to get it up in place. The grease is going to help it slide down over top of the shaft. And once you get it in place, you now need to align it with the base of your entire drill press. Now, I kind of went a little overboard and aligned it perfectly using a plumb bob, but that's just me. If you don't want to do that, you don't have to. Just align it as best you can, and once you're happy with it, you can tighten the set screws on the side of the head to keep it all in place. Well, we can now install the crank handle, and it just goes on the shaft. The set screw can get screwed in, making sure that you come in contact with the flat area of the shaft to set it in place. Give it a little test if you want. And once you're happy with the operation, you can use the jam nut and a 13mm wrench to tighten it down. From there, we're going to get the table in place, make sure that we're happy with that. You got to remember this is also coated with that anti-corrosion coating, some kind of oil. I'm not sure what it is, but just like we did with the base, we're going to use the exact same process to clean and coat that entire table. From there, you can install your handles. They just thread in here on the right-hand side. In the assembly, you can use the included wrench to give them a little bit of a tighten. Just make sure you don't over torque them, guys. You don't want these too tight. Just a little bit more than snug will do you just fine. We now need to install the chuck, and before you install the chuck, you'll want to make sure that your Morse taper is completely clean and polished. From there, you can use a dead blow mallet and just knock it into your chuck, and then placing the Morse taper up into the quill and the same dead blow mallet, give it a few solid whacks, and you're done. I guess we can fire this up and see what it has to say. Isn't that kind of interesting? It's all in French. That's not going to help me for an English show. So we're going to come in here. Let's go to configuration, interface parameters, and there we go. There's language right there, or langu. English and menu to confirm. There we go. Now we're there. Now we're where we want to be. Okay, so let me see what I can do here for getting this drill press into place. That's going to be probably the hardest thing, even more difficult than getting the actual head up on top of it. And maybe we'll go through a couple of the features of this drill press and see what we can do with it. The first one being this cast iron working table. Now, guys, this is a thick cast iron table. It measures just under 17 by 17. It is massive in comparison to the one on the Rycon. And although I'm going to be covering it up because this is just screaming for a drill press table. A drill press table better suits my needs for woodworking, and while this table itself, and all of them like this, are much more suited to metalworking, I don't really like these for a woodworking situation. So we will be building a table for this here on the show. Now, the other thing here is the physical depth stop, and it's a pretty typical depth stop with your threaded rod, I guess you'd call it, with the flattened edge and your measurements and your collet that adjusts up and down to mark where it is that you want to drill your hole. This one, however, has a quick release button on it. So you can push your quick release and slide it up and down as you wish to the spot you like. And then once you get it there, just fine tune it by rolling this up or down in order to get the final measurement that you want. Now, aside from this old style physical depth stop, there is an electronic one. And the way that the electronic one works is you will go into your menu and you can see here, user set depth. You can click on that menu and you can now choose how deep you want to drill this hole. There is 0.050 inches. And of course, you can change this to metric as well, guys, if that's what suits you. 0.1 inches. There's 1/4 of an inch at 0.25. So you can set whatever depth hole that you want. And then all you need to do is once your bit is in place, you will zero out the drill press so that the head of the drill press knows when it's actually going to be touching the wood. In other words, you're going to place the bit on the surface of the wood that you're drilling and zero it out. Then from there, the drill press will measure the travel and it will beep and let you know exactly when your hole is done. You'll also know when it's done because the drill press will stop at that, in this case, 1/2 inch depth. And that kind of brings me to another one of the features, and that is the automatic speed control. Now, depending on how technical you are with your drilling, there are certain drill bits that should not be used over certain speeds. And there are certain drill bits that should be used faster for certain materials, slower for others. How do you keep it straight? There's hundreds of combinations. Well, here on the speed chart, you can just click into your speed chart and choose the type of bit you're using. Twist, brad point, bullet brad point, a Forstner bit, a glass or a tile bit. We got a hole saw here. This is a spade bit down here, spade bit with spurs. You guys get the idea. Countersink, a shear cut countersink, a power bore, or circle cutters, or knuckle busters, as I like to call them. And you just choose the bit you want. So let's just say a Forstner bit. Once you choose that, you now want to choose your size. You can scroll down using the toggle wheel here and get the size of the bit that you're going to be drilling. So let's just, for sake of argument, say we're going to be doing 1.5 inches. So that will fall in this category here. You can click to confirm that. Are you in softwood or hardwood? Let's do softwood. And it automatically sets it at 500 RPM. And you can just press 0 to confirm. And when you start drilling with this drill press, by pressing the on, it will automatically get up to its 500. There it is, right there, 500 RPM. And if there is resistance on the chuck, it will compensate for that resistance and keep it at a constant 500. It will slow down a little bit, but it'll ramp it back up to that 500 to keep a consistent drilling. That's one of the benefits of having a direct drive motor. So the other benefit of a direct drive motor, other than the fact that it doesn't have belts, is the fact that it has a type of electric brake that stops this so much faster than a belt drive unit. So if we start this up at the 500 that we were just running it at, and I press stop, watch how fast this thing actually stops. It's pretty much instant. And that's spectacular, especially if you have a catch on something that you're drilling, which brings me to this feature, this emergency stop button. I wish that so many tools had this type of a function. So if something should go wrong while you're drilling, you just reach up and smack that emergency stop. And right away, the screen's going to tell you what's going to happen. For starters, it's going to kill the power. The motor will no longer spin the chuck. But you can see here on the screen, emergency stop press. And you need to twist to release it. And in order to do that, it shows you here with the arrows. You just twist it, and you're back in business, just like that. Now, if you're drilling with the recommended RPM, and you're not happy with that RPM, in this case 1800, you can just slow it down on the fly if you want with this wheel. Take it down or up to whatever you want. So while we're doing this, you may notice, I don't know how well it's portraying or coming through the mics, but this thing is whisper quiet in comparison to other drill presses. I guess because there's not so many mechanical things like belts and pulleys and that sort of thing to rattle, it's very, very quiet. So the other thing here that is one of the features on this drill press is the self-start mode. The self-start mode is kind of cool. It's one of those things where, let's say you have a series of holes to drill and you don't want to have to keep coming up here and pressing that on button. You can go into the self-start. We've just turned it on. We'll go back here and you can see on the screen, self-start is flashing. That's a warning, because what happens is every single time now you pull down on this handle, that drill press is going to start up with whatever speed it is that you've got it set to. If you have it set to a certain speed and a certain depth, let's say a 1/2 inch deep hole, like we demonstrated a little earlier, it will drill 1/2 inch deep holes until the cows come home. As long as you continue to pull down on the drill press handle, it will continue to start up and drill a 1/2 inch deep hole. That's just the way it works, and that's one of the beauties. One thing I will point out to you, make sure that that function is shut off if you're trying to zero out your drill bit to set up for drilling your 1/2 inch hole, because as soon as you pull down on the handle, you got it, it's going to start up, and then you could run into some problems. So that's something you may want to keep an eye out for. Now, I don't know if you could hear this or not, but can you hear that beeping? It's very quiet, but as the user in front of the drill press, it's very easy to hear. And what that is for is it's telling you that you're getting closer to your depth if you have the depth set. So the closer you get, the faster that beep is going to go. And then when you get to your depth, I'll just finish it off here. There you go. It stopped at the 1/2 inch. The drill press just shuts off, and that beeping lets you know you're getting closer and closer, so you may want to ease up on your pressure. Well, the unit is also able to be changed however you like. These F1, F2, F3, F4 keys, these are preset RPMs. So those are preset speeds that you can hit them at a moment's notice and get what you want. You can also edit these anytime you want if you have a custom speed that you like. You can also edit them because in the background of these, there's a second function. This will be F5, F6, F7, F8, and you can modify those if you wish. You can just come into your menu and right here, edit F shortcuts, favorite speed right here. So let's do this one. Favorite speed, run speed, forward, reverse, change units. You can basically do whatever you want and customize those F keys to change it for your own needs. I'm not going to change anything here because right now I have no need to. But as well, we are in decimal inches, which gives you the ability to have a very fine adjustment. But what if you're a fractions guy, or what if you're a metric guy? Well, that is not a problem. You can come over to configuration, go into interface settings, and right there, units were in imperial decimal. We can click it to do imperial fractions, or click it again to units in metric. So I'm just going to put it to imperial fractions, press menu to back out. And now you can see that instead of having our 000, we have our fractional measurements here. And as we pull the quill down, what you're going to see is kind of a strange measurement here. 4/30 seconds, 1/8. This is your actual measurement, and this is your fraction rounded up, and those are both adjustable as well. 9/30 seconds is not a 1/4 inch. 8/30 seconds would be a 1/4 inch. So 8/30 seconds, but of course it's rounding up. So you want to keep that in mind. Depends on how technical you want to get. And if you are, as I said, a metric guy, then by all means, go into metric, and now we're here in millimeters. And you can pick and choose as you please for the units that you want to drill in. Now from the factory, guys, this thing has a maximum speed, or the maximum speed is set at 3,000 RPM. But being a direct drive drill press, that is not the maximum speed. And if we click on this, the maximum speed is 5,500 RPM. I don't see any reason why I would ever want to run at 5,500 RPM. But let me show you what that looks like. In this case, I'm leaving the braking off for that speed because that's a little bit of wear and tear on the motor that you don't want to do. From 5,500 to braking the motor on shutoff, we're not going to do the dynamic braking here. So we're going to leave it at the max speed of 5,500, and I'll show you what it looks like. And that is just a crazy speed. So for all intents and purpose, for me, I don't ever see a need to run over 3,000. And of course, if you want, you can adjust that maximum speed and play around with it if you wish. But I don't ever see a need to go over 3 grand. So I'm going to leave it at that. And there you have it. The Nova Voyager 18-inch DVR drill press. Guys, what a wicked technological advance in drill presses. An awful lot of bells and whistles on this thing, and an awful lot of digital display and setting, which means with that kind of electronic sensitivity, you do not want to have one of these plugged in your shop without some form of surge protection. So this has a surge protector that I have installed in the wall, and it's plugged into a surge protector. It does not come with it. That you need to provide yourself. But I wouldn't have this plugged in without one. That's some crazy electronics in there. It also comes with a USB cable. A little strange. I've never seen a drill press come with a USB cable, and that actually plugs into the underside of the head, and that is for firmware updates from the manufacturer. So that's another thing that you kind of going to have to play around with and see what you think. Now, you have to remember, no matter how you look at it, this thing has one job, and that job is to drill holes. A drill press that is this expensive, because I'm going to tell you, it's not cheap for the 18-inch DVR. It's not for everybody. That's what I'm going to say. It's not for everybody. This thing drills holes. That's what it does. Sure, it does it in a fancy way where you can change up your RPM and that sort of thing. But if you have a variable speed drill press, you can do that anyway. My Raycon was variable speed, and I could very easily change. But now I don't have to mess around with pulleys. It has depth stops. Well, you know what? You can change your depth stop with a manual depth stop as well. There are so many ways that you could do what this drill press does. This one just has all the technology and the bells and whistles behind it to back it up. So far, I like what I see. Now, don't get me wrong. It's only been a day and a half. And we're going to see how it goes and how we play with it. And I'm going to get a better idea of how much I like it once I get a drill press table made for this thing. And we're going to do that here on the show. I know I've done a drill press table before, but we're going to do another one. The things so far that I'm not really sure about, or things that I'm iffy on. Number one, nowhere to put my chuck key. The Raycon, I got used to and spoiled by the little clip that's up at the head that I can snap my chuck key in there and not have to worry about it. The other thing that I'm not a fan of is no work light. For a drill press that is this expensive, I would think that there would be some form of work light integrated into the design. That is not the case here. So I'm going to have to possibly rig something up. We'll see how that goes. And thirdly, while I haven't tested it yet, there does seem to be a little bit of run out with that chuck. So I'm not 100% sure of how bad it is, but I'm going to have a look. And with a drill that is this expensive and this precision, you would think that the chuck would be a little more precise, I guess we'll call it, a little more finely milled. But I'm going to check the run out on this, and we'll see. Who knows? Maybe I might even get a new chuck and put it on there, get one of those really expensive fancy schmancy ones that don't waver at all. Either way, guys, it is impossible to get a tool that is perfect for everybody, because, of course, everybody has their own set values or their own likes and dislikes. So do I like it so far? Yeah, I do. And we're going to see it a lot more here on the show. So I guess I better get used to it. Pretty slick unit. Guys, I want to thank you so much for tuning in. I'd like to point out, I know that I have certain companies that send me things and ask me to review them for them or check them out. This I paid for, guys, so I don't want you to think that I am associated with the Nova drill press at all in any way, shape, or form. I have no obligation to them at all. I paid cash for this out of my own pocket. Anyway, guys, I think it's a pretty cool unit. It is a beast. It's a big drill press, and we're going to see it a lot here on the show. Guys, if you haven't already, please consider liking and subscribing to the channel. We have an amazing audience base, and I'm hoping that you're going to consider becoming a part of that. I want to thank you so much for tuning in this week. I hope you've enjoyed the content. I hope you found this a little interesting, and if you're in the market for a really expensive bells and whistles kind of drill press, maybe you'll consider the Nova. And more importantly, guys, I hope you're going to join me again next week when I bring you yet another woodworking video.